Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Public Works and Transportation Committee for the City of Oxnard. Madam Clerk, do you have any to read, please?
Roll call. Member Valenzuela?
Present.
Member Zaragoza?
Present.
Chair Perillo?
Here.
We have a quorum. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the City Hall Bulletin Board on April 16th, 2024.
Thank you very much. Can we please stand for the flag salute, and we'll have a moment of silence. I just learned that a long-time, very prominent member of the community, resident of Colonia, Mr. Harold Seha, passed away. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda are public comments, items not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any for not on the agenda?
Chair Perillo, we have no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and the specific item is the City Clerk Department approval of the minutes. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee approve the minutes for April 9th, 2024, regular meeting as presented. Do we have any additions, corrections, or omissions?
I don't.
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve the item.
Second.
Please vote. I'm sorry, are there any public comments on this item?
Chair Perillo, there's no public comment virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you very much. Please vote.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk and Assistant Clerk. The next item on the agenda, Public Works Department. The subject, the fiscal year 24-25 Utility Ratepayers Assistance Program Project Assist Update. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council, number one, this is a two-parter. Number one, adopt a resolution for the Utility Ratepayers Assistance Program called Project Assist for fiscal year 24-25 to assist eligible Oxnard residents and authorize staff to grant financial relief equal to monthly $25 maximum credit per utility bill charged to residential customers who meet the eligibility requirements discussed in the staff report up to the amount funded for fiscal year 24-25. And number two, authorize the staff to fund Project Assist in fiscal year 24-25 by utilizing $241,500 in late penalties from city utility customers. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this one?
Chair Perillo, we have no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you very much. Any questions? And let me just, because again of Measure M and the actions that the voters took, there's not a presentation per se, but I want to share with you. I just left a Ventura City Council meeting. It is amazing what a presentation and a discussion back and forth can do to the environment and the quality of government. Measure M, in my opinion, was a mistake. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, Brian, I just want to say that, and council members of the audience, this is a really, really good program, and that really helps the underserved community, because a lot of people or residents are just under Social Security, and sometimes it's pretty tough for them to pay additional in our utilities. And my understanding that we had, we're looking at probably 804 participants in the last program that had help.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
That is correct. Mayor, committee members, Brian Yon is Assistant Public Works Director. Yes, for year 7, we in April we had 804 participants enrolled in the program. Mm-hmm. We budget for 805, but the participants have to register in July. If all 805 registered in July, we'd only have 805 for the year.
Oh.
But the budget allows us to have a little bit more than 805, but we have not exceeded 805. I got to compliment the staff because, as you can see, the years, the last few years we've gone up. We're really responding to the people that are either emailing in or calling in, assisting them with the application, and making sure that they're enrolled, and for them to understand that they have to enroll every year in July so they can start the program. Because once July 1st comes, they're not automatically enrolled again for this credit. So again, it's just trying to remind customers that they need to enroll and in order to get their
And Brian,
their credit for on
the
utility
income,
bill.
the qualifications had to do with income, is that correct?
So we mirror Southern California Edison and SoCal Gas care program. And there's an eligibility of depending on the household and how much their income is, qualifies them for this program.
I think, Mr. Chair, this is a really good program that I support. Thank you, Brian.
No comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Of the full amount that was budgeted for last year, how much of that was left over? And is this 240, is that including a carryover? Or is that simply the amount that was brought in from the late payments?
No, that's just simply what we budgeted to accommodate 805 participants.
Okay, so we actually take in more than that from late payments?
Yes, and then we budget for the program, and the other funds are utilizing from different of the utility, so everyone does a little bit different with their
Okay, and
agencies.
the other thing, the city does not just take a verbal commitment that a person's responsible. There's some actual proof required that a person is responsible and
Yes,
qualified to
absolutely.
get this.
So they come in with, again, we mirror Southern California Edison and SoCal Gas. So if they're already participants in those programs, they're enrolled in our program. So that's how we validate these customers.
Thank you very much. Would you please repeat again, if they don't qualify, if they don't sign up by July 1st, can you please give that again so that?
So each fiscal year, the participants need to re-enroll July 1st of every year in order to get a full 12 months. If they miss July and start in August, obviously they only get 11 months. So we try to remind these participants, to re-enroll in July 1st every year. So that message is being, we're a little bit more proactive on that message, so they understand that, come July 1st, I need to reapply.
It's a credit to the city of Oxnard, and thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, one of the questions, this is in Spanish and English, right?
That is correct. So
I think
our
that's-
application is Spanish and English. Our person answering emails is bilingual, as well as the phone message as well. And our customer service manager, who is our old call center manager title, Gloria Cardenas, is here.
Good job.
She's oversees the call center as well as this program, so she's bilingual as well and is able to assist the customers that need Spanish speaking.
Thank you for that.
You're
Excellent program.
Gloria, would you like to add anything? Can you give us a experience you've had when somebody calls up and they ask a question? Try to get as much information as you can for the general public, because a lot of people are unaware of this, and some may be falling through the cracks because they're unaware of it.
What we do is this is Gloria Cardenas, and I'm the call center manager. What we actually do is talk to the customer, explain the program. We send them the application, and also advise them that if we receive the documentation before the 15th of the month, they're automatically enrolled for that particular month. So if they end up submitting their application after the 15th, then it goes in effect until the following month. And the customers that are applying, new customers and old seasoned customers, We also explained to please be ready to start submitting their application at the end of June. So by July 1st, their application is submitted, and that way they're able to benefit for the 12 months of the Project Assist.
Thank you very much. Is there any comment or anything you'd like to add, going out to the general public?
The only thing is, I know that we have been able to help a lot of customers with being able to get the discount, and they have been very happy and pleased with what we have been able to provide to them and the assistance.
Okay. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you coming up and filling that in.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Brian.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comments on this, Madam Clerk?
Chair Perrello, we have no public comment virtually or in person.
Okay. Do we have any further questions or a recommendation from the committee?
Yes, motion to approve.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda, beg your pardon, the five-year capital improvement program for fiscal year 25 to 20 through 2029. The recommendations, 5 recommendations. Number 1,
Chair Perrella, I believe you skipped over an item.
I think you're on D3. Did you skip D2?
That, the street sweeping.
thank you, Madam Attorney, thank you, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry. D2, Trade Services Agreement 325-00001 with SCA of CA LLC for citywide street sweeping services. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council
Chair
approve and
Perrella,
Can you double check which one you're on? The next item should be the consulting services for Channel Islands Harbor Water Quality Feasibility Study Agreement 324-00386.
You know,
I have D2.
I have,
You have it differently, Mr.
I
Mayor?
have the same thing that Perrella has.
Okay.
See, look at this. Look at this, street, D2. I have the same, but we,
Is this the item you have? Craft Water Engineering?
No.
so are we going to the Capitol, CIP?
They gave you the wrong agenda. You printed the wrong agenda. This is one.
Watch, look at what I have.
The Craft Water Engineering. Let me bring you one. My apologies.
No
Let me
problem,
get
no
you
problem.
corrected.
Take a couple of minute break here, ladies and gentlemen.
So which one is it, so we can?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We had a slight interruption here.
Thank you, Chair Perello. Just a clarification for the public. It seems that the binders that you were provided were out of order. We've now put them back into order, and we're ready to proceed with the next item that's on the posted agenda, which is craft water.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the catch. Only 2 items were out of order. They've been corrected. And things happen, ladies and gentlemen, and we're grateful to have the staff that we have that catches it. Thank you. Okay, going back. Number 2, the agreement 324-00386 with Craft Water Engineering for consulting services for Channel Islands Harbor Water Quality Feasibility Study and Implementation Plan. Recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute agreement 324-00386, subject to the approval of the final form of the agreement by the city attorney with Craftwater Engineering Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $735,902 for a 3-year term ending from the effective date of the agreement for consulting services for the Channel Islands Harbor Water Quality Feasibility Study and Implementation Plan. Again, because of Measure M, there's no presentation. We have staff here to answer questions. Madam Clerk, is there any public comments on this item?
Chair Perello, there's no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
So, who's up and what staff's up? I just want to ask a quick question. This $735,000 for 3 years for a feasibility study, is that correct, Steve? Or
Excuse me, Chair Perello. We just have one person raised a hand on virtual. Do you want to take the public speaker?
before?
Sorry, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Please go ahead. Thank you, Assistant City Clerk. Thank you.
Caller with phone number ending in 2382, please press *6 to unmute, and you have 3 minutes. You can introduce yourself if you like.
Thank you. Hi, Debbie Mitchell here from the Channel Islands Waterfront Homeowners Association. And I would first just like to say good evening and thanks for the agenda item and the presentation. I do hope you will approve this item. We very much appreciate the ARPA funds being used for the Harbor Water Quality Feasibility Study and Implementation Plan, and hope to identify through this additional stakeholders to participate in the mitigation efforts. As mentioned in the presentation, Oxnard, the County of Ventura, and the residents of Channel Islands neighborhood organized efforts to identify the source of the problem. However, without a feasibility study, there would not be quantifiable measure of either the problem or the solution. The impact of the power plant closure did not cause the impact of agricultural runoff, though chemicals are found in the harbor that would be considered agricultural in use. There is no testing at the source. We also do not know the impact of the homeless encampments along the canal or the specific contributions from the watershed district from Ventura County and the Oxnard Plain draining into the harbor at many drains and other sources. It's my understanding that the SYNC volunteers from the Harbor Water Quality Team, made up of residents and homeowners in the developments north of the bridge, have identified ag runoff and the chemicals therein known as a problem in the harbor. This group has been working with the Water Quality Control Board in an attempt to have testing required at the ag runoff places, and the property owners should be involved as stakeholders for mitigation efforts. However, the California Water Board takes years to make that happen. The entire watershed from agricultural runoff and MS4 storm drains should also share in the costs of mitigation. I'm frustrated that a lawsuit against the city hangs up the idea of increasing assessments, because for our homeowners association in particular, our assessment could not afford to pay for this mitigation, for the testing or the mitigation at this point in time. I do hope the study will provide specific data that would result in identifying the external sources of contamination from the areas outside of the harbor that would result in sharing responsibility and costs for mitigation, and that by that time, the lawsuit will be over with. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers?
Chair Perrello, there's no additional speakers virtually or in person.
Board, do you have any comments?
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, Steve, the question I had, this 735,902 for 3 years, feasibility study implementation plan. Do we study and implement at the same time with the 3 years? How is that going to work?
Mayor Zaragoza, Steve Hallett, Assistant Public Works Director. So the purpose of this agreement is for Craftwater to come in, do the research. They are water quality experts. Do the research on the data that we have already collected, and then do outreach with the various stakeholders and look at various mitigation measures based on what their findings are from their research. So the mitigation measures are a component of it, and then it'll go into an implementation plan based on one or more of the more feasible mitigation measures.
Okay, but that 735 is for the 3 years?
Up to 3 years,
Up
correct?
to 3 years, not to exceed. Okay, thank you, sir.
I share with my committee members, I totally support this. But I would like to take the opportunity to commend specifically the individual that spoke. She is, and I see we have quite a few members of the audience that are here for specific items. But the individual that spoke, I think, sets a high bar for any group that's coming in asking for something for the city of Oxnard. They have put blood, sweat, tears, and finances at risk to get help for the city of Oxnard so the city can help themselves. Help me, help you. This neighborhood and the work that's being involved with the group from this water quality, they've brought a lot of things to the table. One of the things that they are really pushing for is to identify the responsible parties. As a council member, I wouldn't be worth the powder to blow me to hell if I didn't go after holding the responsible parties accountable. This is a different day and age. When we find somebody responsible, they got to be held accountable. There's no kiss on the cheek and let them go by. This has been going on for a long time in the state, the county, and the city. Are there any comments by the board members?
No, no.
I move the recommended action.
Second.
Please vote. Beg your pardon. Beg your pardon. I guess I got to, I'd like a motion, I want to make a motion to amend the recommended action, and I'll read the recommended action. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute agreement 324-00386, subject to approval of the final form of the agreement by the city attorney with Clearwater Engineering Incorporated.
I believe
There's been
that's the wrong one. Hold on.
Yes. Sure, you've all have heard that there's somebody who told you in your past there will be days like this. Today is one of these days. And I'm grateful to have the staff here. I'd like to restate the motion to amend the recommendation. The recommendation is, the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute agreement 324-00386 with Craftwater Engineering Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $735,902 for a 3-year term, ending with the effective date of the agreement for the consulting services for the Channel Islands Harbor Water Quality Feasibility Study and Implementation Plan. That,
And I'll second that with the corrections.
thank you very much. Please vote.
Motion carries 3-0.
With the indulgence of the chair, can we take a 2-minute break, please? Welcome back. Thank you. Next item on the agenda. Beg your pardon. Number 3, Public Works 5-Year Capital Improvement Program, CIP, for fiscal year 2025-2029. The recommendations, the Public Works and Transportation Committee provide input on the draft CIP and recommend that the City Council, and again, this is a 5-part item, hold a public hearing to receive public testimony regarding the proposed 25-29 City of Oxnard 5-year CIP. Number 2, approve the existing carryover CIP projects and the proposed new funding as outlined in the staff report for Category 1 projects. Number 3, reaffirm the carryover CIP projects in Category 2. Number 4, approve the project prioritization list for Categories 3 and 4 outlined in the staff report and adopt the 2025-2029 City of Oxnard 5-year capital improvement project. And finally, last, number 5, direct staff to finalize the 2025-2029 CIP and general fund Measure O amounts for Category 4 projects once the city's fiscal year 2024-25 operating budget has been completed as approved CIP funding allows. Again, due to Measure M, there is no presentation per se. Madam Clerk, do we have any? I see that we do have at least one public speaker. I don't know if we have any more. She's coming up.
2 more. So there's number 2 and number 3.
Okay,
And
thank you
they're
very
all
much.
here in person.
We have, again, to the public speaker, since there is no presentation, you would normally, in a normal situation, ask if you want to hear the presentation before you speak. Since there's no presentation, we'll take the first speaker. Ms. Carolyn Mullins, the second speaker is Gary Blum, the third speaker is Vince Barron. You have 3 minutes.
Chair Pearl, we have Angela Whitecomb. She signed up on the pre-registered speaker.
Okay, then, should she go in front of Milliken? I beg your pardon, right here in front of me.
Okay.
So she's,
She's here in person. She signed up for today, but she's
So-
here in
so
person.
she should
So
be
she
number
should
one?
go first.
okay. Ms. Whitcomb, apparently you're first in line. Please go ahead.
Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Angela Whitecomb. I am the chair for the Parks and Recreation Commission, and I'm also the chair for the Downtown Improvement District, known as DOYA. And I'm coming tonight on the item listed, no funding for the Carnegie Art Museum, or what was the Carnegie Art Museum. And I have a real big concern with the fact that the line item directly says that the artwork that's stored in the museum is in peril due to the fact that the HVAC is at the end of its serviceable life, and that there is moisture leaching into the building because the bricks need to be paved. So when you get that, you get humidity and mold, as we are fully aware with the Boxer Gym and with the roofs leaking. When the roof leaks, there's mold. Well, also mold comes in through a basement area, through groundwater. So just the state of the Carnegie as it is right now is embarrassing. It's a punch in the face to the downtown. It pretty much says we don't care yet. We're supposed to be an art, part of the downtown vision plan is to become an arts hub. But when the city says, yeah, we don't care about art, we don't care about museums, we don't care about culture because we don't take care of the buildings that we have, it's terrible. We're trying to bring tourists into this town and provide education for our citizenry, and we're not doing that. And we keep not doing that, and we keep kicking the can down the road. But what I've noticed is every time we kick the can down the road, it doubles in cost. And we can't keep up with the projects that we have. We have so many things sitting in yards because we don't have enough employees to handle the projects. At what point are we gonna say, city. We need to become efficient. We need to become effective. Staff, we need to hold you accountable. It shouldn't take 2 years to get a permit, even when the city has to do it. We don't get bids because we don't advertise properly. We only advertise through cybercopy. I'm a contractor. I know where the bids come from. I search for them. You only get them from cybercopy. You don't go out to a broader part of California and use things like Planet Bids. There's other programs. That's just the one I can name off the top of my head. I get advertisements from every other city in the state. I don't get them from the city I live in and the city I volunteer in. Mr. Perello, you said that we need to give to our community and hold our citizenry accountable if they want something from the city. Well, I'm someone who gives to this city, and I want to hold our city accountable for the lack of responsibilities. Thank you.
May I ask a question before you step away? You said you were aware of mold. Do you have any facts and evidence to back that up?
Not in the Carnegie,
So that's
in
an
the
opinion?
Barkser gym.
But
I
that's-
said,
That's an opinion then?
no, if you don't take care of moisture in a building, you get mold.
I understand that, but I mean, you could lead the public to believe, including this councilman, that you're aware of some facts that I'm unaware of. If you do have information, please
No,
share it.
I'm going straight off the report
Okay.
that your city replies when it says unfunded item, the Carnegie. If you read in there, that it
Correct.
says directly that the art is at risk if you don't take care of these items. Plain as day.
Okay, I just asked if you had any specific evidence, so thank you.
How could I? Nobody can get into the Carnegie unless you work for the city.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Ms. Mullen.
Good evening, City Council members and staff. My name is Carolyn Marina Mullen, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director for the Oxnard Performing Arts Center Nonprofit Corporation, better known as OPAC. It's a mouthful. That's why we're OPAC. I'm here tonight to request that this committee champion that the PAC Theater roof be moved from Category 4 to Category 1. Don't know if that's possible. Would love to see that, so that it can be quote-unquote above the line. I do truly empathize. I didn't write this right. Okay, all right, it's late. How do you guys work at 8:30 o'clock at night? I truly do empathize with the financial pressures and capacity issues facing the city, and that Public Works has so many citywide needs to address. The PAC is certainly one of them. This center is the heart of the city, welcoming 350,000 residents and visitors to over 1,500 events annually. It needs a functioning roof. This is not just about funding an arts venue. This impacts the city's economic outlook, such as tax revenue from hotel stays and the additional dollars spent in restaurants and lake establishments when people attend a concert or hold a special event at the PAC. Perhaps there are creative means to find the funding. For example, and dream with me, there's $1.3 million in the Arts and Public Places Fund. Could you not embed an artist into a new roof? Thinking neon lighting, projection mapping, things like that. I think with some creative energy here, you can find a solution to this problem. What's the alternative? In my research, the impacts of water damage, it's game over when this water seeps into the walls. By not addressing this now, we face a point of no return. This roof has been exposed like this for the last 3 years, and with historical amounts of rainfall coming down. How much longer can this building endure such exposure? The parties housed at the PAC, OPAC and the Canyon, are exceeding expectations. OPAC specifically is on track to give the city $180,000 in revenue this fiscal year, twice what's expected of us. We've invested over $100,000 in lighting and audio upgrades, and our programming is so expansive and impactful, from free children's arts classes to audio engineering courses for young adults. And you've been given a copy of our annual report at the beginning of the year, outlining all of the things that we do. Last week, Council, and I'm grateful, acknowledged the importance of arts, culture, and creativity with a proclamation, and the next day, the Murphy Auto Museum announced its closure. There are now no more museums in this city, the largest city in the region, and we have no cultural anchors other than the PAC. So I ask, will this city also give up on its sole performing arts venue? I ask that you please consider finding the funding for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker, Mr. Gary Blum, please.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, and staff. My name is Gary Blum. I am immediate past chairman of the Oxnard Performing Arts Center Corporation. I've been on that board almost 25 years, I think now. And I was bringing up the same issue with the roof issue. A parallel universe that I'm in is 29 years on the Ventura County Cultural Heritage Board. And just yesterday, for those of you who may follow me on Facebook, I posted a photo album and a video reel of the Reyes Adobe in North Ventura County, a very rural part of the county. It's one of the last remaining 12 adobes that are significant in the county's history. And by neglect, demolition by neglect, that structure we had to approve for demolition. It was a series of owners, not a specific targeted developer who wanted to neglect it and have it torn down, but a series of owners who did not take care of maintenance. And unfortunately, we're losing that structure and the significant history, 170 years of history of that structure. I only bring that up because I feel like there's this parallel universe here in Oxnard. I understand that the city manager, the fourth floor, and the city council have had to right the financial ship of the city, and I applaud the tremendous achievements that they have accomplished. But to say that the roof replacement on the PAC is a $1.8 million project that has to be kicked down the road for 5 more years when a $6,000 tarp could stop the water infiltration. That roof, that elevation of the roof had a wind incident about 15 years ago, and it was replaced. Those sections of panels that were ripped off in the wind were replaced, painted, you never knew it. There was, when this incident happened, there was plastic put, it wasn't put in properly, and that tarp blew off, so now the plywood is exposed. There's reports that it's marine grade plywood. I've rarely seen marine grade plywood used as a roofing material, but that's what staff told us at the PAC. I'm sure we could raise a few $1,000s to tarp that wall. That's all we need to do is keep the water out of that building. Any other owner, responsible owner, would do that on a building they own. And I really feel that this is really a demonstration of demolition by neglect. It's a clear example. I've seen it happen again and again throughout the county in my almost 3 decades of working in preservation and maintaining historic assets. I think it's the same situation here. Thank you.
Mr. Bloom. Next speaker, Vince Barron, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vince Behrens. I am the past chair of the Downtown Business Group. I want to remind everyone that at one time, the Downtown Business Group was formed because we needed a partner in the city. The city asked us as business people and property owners to please come together and form a district. We did do that district. This is now going on 25 years. If you had told me 6 months ago that the condition of the Carnegie View and the condition that it is now, I would have said I was embarrassed. When I was the chair of the downtown group, this is pre-COVID, Oscar, council member, came to me as chair and said, I have bad news for everyone. We have made a decision that we are going to close the Carnegie. I said, well, when is the plan to close it? Because I would love to see some numbers. What it would take to keep it open. How is it that we could possibly keep the most iconic building, the most cultural building in the city with all the history? This is the building that the city of Oxnard has been built around. I said, could you please give me some numbers so that we could at least see if there is some way that the Downtown Business Group, partnering with the city, could keep this building open? That never came to me. I said, so when are you planning on closing this building? Well, we've already decided to close it. I said, so what you're telling me is that you're going to close a museum in the downtown. This museum, this building was given to us by the Carnegie family. This is a building that basically has started off as a library, then it was city council. I mean, it has Oxnard blood in it. This is the one building that is the most photographed building in the entire city next to the pagoda. So for that to be closed was just heartbreaking. To have it not have any opportunity to go into and figure out what we could possibly do to keep it open as a cultural center was it was mind-blowing to think that we were actually going to close it. So to close it, 6 years on, here we are sitting where we are looking at a building that basically, when you go by it, I have weeds growing up in it. I've got places where someone tried to set a fire. I would love to partner with the city. Again, we were told that as a city, as a property owner and business owners, the city would be our partner. So far, you guys do not rank as partners. I'm just trying to be very upfront and honest. After 30 years of living in the downtown and growing up in the downtown, I would never want you guys to be a partner again, because there is nothing that we can say that we have partner on. This is something, we have money in the bank, we could easily partner on to create something that could be a real huge go-to for the downtown for tourism and everything else. Let me also remind you, we lost the Children's Museum to Camarillo because Camarillo came to us as a group and said, we can make this happen. So to lose the Children's Museum, something that came up through the downtown, is incredible to me to think that it is now in Camarillo. They raised $1 million. We could not get any kind of ground. We could not, it was frustrating to work with the city. Already? Let me just say, there is no other Carnegie in any other part of the county. You have an incredible gem in the Carnegie. We must think of its future, not of its past. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Abel Magana, please.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the committee. Thank you for taking these comments here on a very important subject here. I want to first of all commend the council for having the foresight to actually put together a 5-year vision for the city and setting priorities. And I think back the last I checked in the 23 through 27 priorities, the reopening of the Carnegie was one of the listed under the quality of life priority. So I know like every day you're dealing with so many issues and you're taking calls from constituents that are competing interests. But, you know, setting those priorities is a guide way to frame and can stay focused on those particular priorities. And the fact then that you look at then the capital improvement program, and the way I understand it, it's always a 5-year rolling setting of priorities. Back into 2019 to the 2019 to 2024 one, the Carnegie was already there. You know, the same issues. You know, taking care of the HVAC and making it ADA accessible and stuff. So I think it's important to just go back to those things and say again, you know, like I keep seeing in those reports year after year the same thing. It's like there's no funding source that's been identified. So I'd like to know like what other sources have been studied or considered, like, and fairly, you know, maybe there's other better uses for those, but were determined. But the downtown improvement settlement, for one, that's like $4.5 million in there. And there's probably money coming back to that with some of the disposal of the surplus properties that were purchased through that fund. The old laundromat, and hopefully when the Social Security building gets entitled for the new development there. Also, the Cultural Arts Fund, as Carolyn mentioned, $1.3 million there too. I think, you know, the building itself stands the test of time as a physical work of art, really too. So I think there could be a creative use of that money as well, and maybe the transient occupancy tax that used to fund a good portion of the work of Visit Oxnard. That could also be a potential source. I know it still shows up on a lot of lists on social media and the internet, top 10 places to visit when you go to Oxnard, downtown Oxnard. Carnegie still shows up there. So it's sad, you know, when people do show up and it's like, you know, closed. And I think there was actually even a cartoon drawn by a local artist, a very talented artist too, that kind of expressed that in imagery, and it was pretty poignant. So I would just ask, that we consider all potential funding sources and engage the community in a dialogue. I think it was suggested here. You know, maybe there are some fundraising opportunities where we can collaborate. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Magana. Are there any other speakers?
Chair Perrell, there's one virtual speaker.
Thank you.
Caller with phone number ending in 2382, please press *6 to unmute and introduce yourself if you like, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Debbie Mitchell again. And my reason for speaking on this topic is with this complex 5-year plan, watching the presentation, I can't imagine the amount of work that the city has had to go through by putting off bonding, and to understand that the lawsuit that that the city won the lawsuit from Aaron Starr, and now it's still hung up for another 18 months. When some of these issues, it would seem to me, people could vote on and vote for a bond, and it may get supported. In addition to the creative financing that people have brought up. And I just feel like I see so many posts in different areas on Nextdoor and whatever when people are angry about something and they jump to, oh, we should sue the city. And I look at where this has got us on this 5-year plan and how many things have been put off for lack of funding, lack of the ability to bond. And I just hope people will remember this. And thank you very much for your work.
Thank you very much.
Chair Perrella, there's no additional speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you. Committee?
I just want to thank all the speakers, for their comments today on the CIP, but one of the recommendations here is to hold a public hearing on the proposed 25-29 5-year CIP. And notice that in the presentation that we have about 124 projects and also 54 that request new funding. And potentially we have about $750 million worth of CIP projects. I think the speakers had some really, really good comments. I believe that at this time, I'd like to see this go to the entire city council as opposed to, I know there's 5 recommendations. The question I have right now is, do we have to approve 2 and 3, the existing carryover, or can we just send everything to the city council, to the entire city council?
So, Mr. Mayor, Michael Wolf, Director of Public Works. So the way we are setting this up is to identify the different projects based on staff recommendations for prioritization. I'm not sure, we certainly can retool the recommendation to council, but recognize that we have to provide some level of prioritization.
But let me read to us, approve the existing carryover CIP projects, proposed new funding outline as category 1. I think we probably need to work with that. Is that correct now?
So before we go too far, I wanted to make a couple comments here. We'll talk about the PAC. So we spent about $1 million doing PAC roof replacements recently. So the idea that we have not invested in the PAC, I would say that that's not an accurate statement. We did roof replacements at the PAC. I think we finished them up maybe 6 or 8 months ago. I think was about $1 million worth of work. Now there's additional work that needs to be done out there, just like most of our facilities. So the comment or the potential comment that we aren't investing in the PAC, I would say that that's not an accurate statement. We are also doing a seismic tier 2 evaluation of the PAC. Again, funding being identified for the PAC is funding investing in the PAC. The comments about the Carnegie Museum, I will also state that there's $200,000 in this CIP to do the seismic evaluation of the Carnegie Museum. So there's funding being identified for the Carnegie Museum. I also would like to read specifically the comment that's in the staff report so that it can go on record about the Carnegie. And if you would indulge me a little bit, I'm just going to read it from here. The HVAC system and elevator are at the end of their serviceable life and are in need of replacement to protect the art collection and comply with current ADA standards respectively. Exterior waterproofing is failing and moisture is seeping through the masonry wall, which could damage the art collection. That's what's written in our staff report. And so we have actually, and we can bring up maybe Mr. Hallett for a second. He can talk about how the facility staff is actually monitoring the temperature and the moisture in that building on a daily basis and the readings that we have that we collect every day. So I wanted to make those comments before we go any further about sort of the comment about lack of resources being provided to these two facilities. There are resources being provided from a funding standpoint. There are resources being provided from a staffing standpoint. Obviously, we have a tremendous amount of need throughout the city, tremendous amount of need throughout the city in a lot of facilities. A lot of facilities have roofs that leak. A lot of facilities have elevators that need repairs. There's a lot of need, and our resources aren't able to cover all that, whether that's resources from a funding standpoint or resources from a staffing standpoint. I also take exception to the idea that the staff is not being held accountable. To me, that's just not correct. The fact that contractors choose or choose not to bid are things that are outside of our control. The fact that I have not seen since I've been here a project that resulted in no bid that didn't actually get put forward as a project. Most of our projects either get bids, or if they don't get bids, we're able to then utilize our procurement process to allow us to negotiate directly with a contractor. I would love programs such as Planet Bids. I've used those in the past, and I would agree with the commenter that's a good program. But I don't think that results in the lack of us being able to produce projects that they think are priorities over others. We certainly can parade out a laundry list of projects that we've finished, a laundry list of improvements that we've done. In fact, we've included some of those accomplishments in our staff report, specifically the roof replacement at the PAC, the Ventura Room, and the Oxnard rental space. That's a project that we've completed in this fiscal year. And so the question I think that's being asked to the council from the community members is, what is the priority of this project over others? And so tonight is an opportunity for council or for the committee members to look at the recommendations that are from staff. And if there are projects that you would like to see be moved ahead of other projects, I would suggest that could be a conversation tonight. And that's a conversation about two things. Well, three things technically. One, is it a priority over other projects that we're recommending?
That's it.
Two, is there funding available for those projects? And then three, is there staff resources for that project? And so potentially, let's make an example here. We want to change out Project A with Project B that's on the unfunded list, which is a good conversation for the committee to have. What we'll ask the committee is, or we'll tell the committee that Project A may not be the same in level of resource allocation as Project B. So you can't just replace A with B. You got to replace A with B, C, and D. You got to take B, C, and D off the list
within that category
to do A, because the resources aren't the same. And so we certainly are able to answer those questions tonight and make a recommendation going to council. But that really is the intent of this conversation, is to prioritize those lists so that when council sees them, it has the community or has the committee's input.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for the comments. I would just like to add this. It seems to me, and I do understand the passion, I do believe passion is important. And I do understand the passion that was expressed in public comment. But I did take that there's the assumption by some who made comments that the staff doesn't care and they're not paying attention, and the city manager doesn't give a damn, or the council doesn't give a damn. You're wrong. You're all wrong. Every one of you. There are priorities. And until some of you have run for council and lost, some of us have won, sometimes wondering, why did you take the job? I'm not going to quit. But when you sit up here and you find out you only have so many dollars to work with, and you got a lot of people asking for those dollars, which one's the most important? I've never been a mother, but some people are mothers. And when it comes to feeding the kids, I assume they treat all the kids the same. They don't give one the best, and the other one gets the crumbs. That's what the city's trying to do. There's been a prioritization of what's important by the staff, and the council has prioritized with what they have to work with. I appreciate the comments, and I hope when this comes to the council, you all keep your comments and you don't shirk from the opportunity to come up and voice your opinion. They matter. But exactly what our Public Works Director said, if we want to take Project A, which costs $50, and we want to swap it out with Project C, which costs $50, we can do that. But if we want to take Project A, which costs $1 million, and swap it out with Project C, which costs $7 million, we can't do that. And you don't have to be a college graduate to figure that out. Any comment?
Arthur?
Yes, I just wanted to ask a question for staff. I think we had this conversation earlier today. So even if we were to add another project from the unfunded list to category 1 or with the rest of them, like there is still a limitation. Even if we put funding towards it, it would be like there's a limitation to staff capacity, correct?
That's correct.
Yes, and then, even if, theoretically, if the council wanted to, like, provide more funding for, like, more staff capacity, there is still the issue of, like, filling these vacancies, correct?
That's correct. So we do have existing vacancies within our engineering division that would be assigned to do projects, capital projects.
So it's difficult to push the barrier on our capabilities without having all the staff, correct.
So having been the Public Works Director for a couple agencies, I will say that 124 projects is a lot of projects. And our staff does a great job to try to move those projects along with understanding that some things are outside of our control, whether that's how busy a design consultant is. So if the design consultant that has to design the roof project is busy, and nobody wants to provide us a proposal for that, we continue to solicit for those design services. That's outside the control of staff. We certainly can beat the bushes and find consultants that want to do that work, but then the question is, should we be paying $500 million for a design that's worth $100,000? So we have some fiduciary responsibility to understand that it's an important project, but is it important for 5 times the cost? So we do have some vacancies in our Public Works Engineering Division. Some of those vacancies would be directly related to project management or project engineering. We continue to solicit for those positions. I will tell you, we're not the only city or the only agency or the only employer that has problems finding engineers. As a licensed engineer myself, I find we are few and far between in terms of experience and associated with municipal services. And I find that a lot of the folks that I grew up with in my career are now working for private engineering firms doing things that are associated with that for many reasons. But doesn't mean that they are readily available to do our project on call in a minute. And our available resources in Ventura County aren't as vast and wide as they are in other counties. LA County has certainly a lot more engineering firms and architectural firms than Ventura County does. And so I see that as being also an issue. Since I moved out of other counties into Ventura County, I don't see the same amount of external resources that I've seen in other places. And then the question comes up, well, why not hire consultants to help out with projects? And we mentioned that in the staff report. And we certainly do have some consultants. We have several on-call consultants that help us out with projects. We have one that's helping us out with the Campus Park project. We have a couple other projects that we have consultants helping us out from a project management standpoint to try to fill in some of those vacancies, if you will. But it still requires a staff member to oversee that consultant. It still requires a staff member to write the RFP, solicit it through the city's RFP process. It still requires a staff member to manage that project, to pay the invoices, to negotiate that contract. So we try to supplement our staff as much as we can with those resources that are available to us. We just have a lot of projects that are out there. We have a lot of need, a lot of deferred maintenance.
And Mr. Chair, some of the projects that we have are now hampered by litigation. And litigation that, funding, especially for arterials and our streets and so forth, that they're really going to hurt us in the future. Maybe you can share a little bit with it.
Oh, and in terms of current litigation?
Yes.
Maybe the city attorney.
Maybe I'll defer to the assistant city attorney for that one.
Sure. Right now, we have a litigation matter against our current bonding for other issues at the city, and so the city's put a moratorium on issuing any bondings until that litigation has gone through the writ process over in Ventura Superior Court, and there may be an appeal taken from that. So we're looking at a decision hopefully in 12 to 18 months.
In additional 18 months. Yeah.
Sorry, I have a question. So I guess, would this be an appropriate time to request, like, I think, in order of like reprioritizing some of these projects, I guess my question is now like a good time to ask or request that category 3 under parks and open space, that item 13 Ormond Beach access, to request that this would be considered a higher priority for items that we would, for new projects with identified funding.
Does the request you have a certain number or something?
Number 13 on parks and open space for category 3.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
So category, for those of you who may be in the audience who didn't watch the Measure M video, maybe I can talk about the categories. Category 3, so category 1 projects are existing projects in the CIP that are being carried over or recommended by staff to be carried over that may have some additional funding that's non-general fund. So those are a pretty typical CIP process by which existing projects are already identified, already been approved, previous funding has already been approved, and staff is recommending some additional funds for some of those projects in the 2-year funding window that are not general fund money. Category 2 projects are projects that that mirror the staff report that went to council February of last year for quote unquote below the line. That's what category 2 projects are. They're important projects, but as previously identified by council, have a priority that is less than what the active projects are. Category 3 project, which is being discussed right now, are projects that are new projects. These are projects that have not been approved through any council action item, holistically council action item as part of the CIP. So these are new projects, and these are priority projects that staff is recommending are higher priority than category 2 projects. And staff is also recommending that those projects get funded at certain levels for certain phases, whether that's design phase or planning phase or right-of-way or construction. So in category 3, I think the request is, or the comment is, we have an Ormond Beach access project, which is project 13. And right now what staff is recommending that actually receive $250,000 for the first funding year window. And that would be for doing a master plan access design, if you will. And then $1 million in the second year of the CIP to potentially start that construction process. So from our perspective, it's a priority project and is recommended for the committee and the council to consider that as a priority project. So moving it up on a list, I'm not sure I understand the request because it already really is a priority project.
Oh, sorry. I thought my assumption was that then the numerical order they were in was the level of priority that they were.
So, and thank you for pointing that out. Again, try to make this as non-complex as possible, what you're talking about, a lot of projects, so it's a little tough. The list that is in priority order is category 4. That's the only list that actually staff put a priority on because there's, 70 or 80 or 90 projects on that list. And so we prioritized the first 13 based on what's written in the staff report. We based it on health and safety, we based it on asset protection, and we based it on expansion. And then we went back and looked at those council priorities and folded those into that prioritization. So category 4, 1 through 13 are the only ones that actually have a ranking from staff. The ones that are in category 3, the only reason why we put a number is so that we can actually have a conversation about a project rather than saying the title of the project. So we'll only put numbers there to help us have a conversation and not a prioritization.
Thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Chair, I don't have any recommendations to move anything, from categories 1 through 5. So I would,
There are projects that I hold and say near and dear, but I trust the staff. One litigation you've mentioned, we also have a potential litigation with a seawall, one short section of a seawall. And I find that prominent, but I just want to say something to the public that's here, and hopefully those that are watching. I want to thank Mr. Blum, tremendously thank you, Mr. Blum, for recognizing what has happened with the management that's in the city, trying to dig itself out from the financial catastrophe that it found itself in. And I do find fault with the lawsuit for the Mr. Starr's organization, but I can't blame Mr. Starr's organization for everything. The extreme deferred maintenance going back decades that came to surface when Mr. Nyhoff was here and then Mr. Newen came in, it wasn't their fault. This is past city leadership and residents, myself included. I used to come up here at that podium and raise Cain about various things, mostly health. That was the one I was really involved in. I didn't know about the underground stuff. I didn't know about the life expectancy of the streets. I learned when I got on here. So I can't fault all Mr. Starr. I hold him a lot accountable for a lot of things. But this extreme deferred maintenance, that's what we're prioritizing, trying to get the city back up on its heels. It doesn't mean that I personally don't care about the Carnegie or the PAC. I was on that PAC board, I believe, with Mr. Blum, and I remember some things being said that I didn't understand. At the time, the wife of the former mayor wanted to open it up for all free, and it was costing the city $1 million a year. And we were going down the hole. We were on the verge of having bonds called because we couldn't pay the next year's payments on the bonds. And there had to be decisions made of what to do. I do remember attending a meeting with Councilman Oscar Madrigal. Mr. Vince is talking about having gotten some bad news. Well, the council got some bad news. We were on the verge of having a bankruptcy in the city, of shutting down a lot of services, of letting a lot of people go. Changes and discussions had to be. I was on this council, sitting on that corner over there, when this place was a madhouse and everybody was raising hell. What are you doing? What are you doing? But those same people never seemed to come, and I count myself in this group, years before and ask the questions about the nuts and bolts and the finances of the city. That's what we're talking about with this. We have a limited amount of money in the pocketbook, the bank account, the gold bullion buried, whatever the hell it is that you got, but you have an enormous amount of needs, wants, and desires. And we're trying to deal with needs, wants, and desires. I know the last time I got into a bit of a discussion with the mayor about painting a building, and there's another one coming up. Well, I find out, and Mr. Kettle could explain, apparently one of the buildings now, the concrete on the side of it is, I believe the word sprawling, and now the building could be in jeopardy. What do you do? Wait another 5 years? Do you take care of it? You decide that's a little bit more important than something else? 7 people up here have to make that decision based on the best advice they get, and the best advice that I'm getting is from my staff. I have a lot of people that they want. And I will tell you, all the desires, sports parks, campus park, all those things, those are fantastic. But until there's a sugar daddy that comes in here and pays for it, it's got to come out of the residents of Oxnard. We just had an item earlier in the day, $240-some thousand is going to go for people that can't pay the utility bill. Well, we can go, wait a minute, $240,000, we can forget that and put a tarp over the pack and make somebody happy. What do? You're a councilman, you're supposed to decide the highest priority. I sound like I'm crying in my beer, I'm not. I'm just trying to lay it out on the line. People tell me to shut up, I should shut up. I think the mayor's got to, I believe the fairest thing to do on this is to put it in front of the entire council. It will probably be a bloodbath. But I don't think it's fair for me to kind of steer what they're going to do. They will hear the same input from the Public Works Department, from the Finance Department, from the manager. And it'll be a decision made on what we do. I can't promise you a steak dinner when I don't have 2 nickels together to get you a steak dinner, unless I take you to dinner and let you wash dishes and I walk out the door. I wasn't raised that way. That's all I have. Do you have any? Okay, I would. Does the city attorney or the public works director wish to add anything?
Nothing further for me.
Okay. I would definitely move item 1 of number 3, hold a public hearing to receive public testimony regarding the proposed 2025-29 City of Oxnard 5-year capital improvement plan. And the others, I believe, might tie our hands too tightly. So I believe by not approving those others, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, city attorney, that this gives the opportunity for the council to have equal footing in what they want and what they don't want.
You're not hampering them. They're not bound by the recommendation of this committee. If they were to change any of those categories, they could, but it's up to you guys as to what you'd like to move in this recommendation.
Okay, so I understand it in plain English. If I were to go 1 through 5, yes, you're telling me they're not bound by anything that I just approved 1 through 5?
Correct.
Oh, well, then we can go ahead. So the council can then add, subtract, or so forth?
Yes, they
Because it's
can.
just a recommendation to send it to the council.
Correct.
Okay, then it's a
Okay.
different story.
Okay, I'll make that motion then, unless, do you have something you want?
Second.
Okay.
Any further comments, public comments, Assistant City Clerk?
Chair Perello, no additional public speakers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please vote.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. Appreciate all the members of the public that got involved and spoke. Thank you. Moving to the next item. Number 4, amendment to agreement A-8339, number A-8340, number A-8341, number A-8342, and A-8483 with Mariposa Landscape Incorporated for landscape maintenance services for citywide general fund parks. One second. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute. There are 5 steps on this one also. Number 1, Second Amendment for Agreement A-8339 with Mariposa Landscaping Incorporated for a 1-year extension ending June 30th, 2025, and increase the current not-to-exceed amount from $475,000 to $615,000 in Region 1. Number 2, Second Amendment to Agreement A-8340 with Mariposa Landscape Incorporated for a 1-year extension ending June 30th, 2025, and increase the current not-to-exceed amount from $430,000 to $561,000 in Region 2. Number 3, Third Amendment to Agreement A-8341 with Mariposa Landscape Incorporated for a 1-year extension ending June 30th, 2025, and increase the current not-to-exceed amount from $950,000 to $1,249,000 in Region 3. Number 4, Second Amendment to Agreement A-8342 with Mariposa Landscaping Incorporated for a 1-year extension ending June 30th, 2025, and increase the amount not to exceed amount from $550,000 to $714,000 in Region 4. And number 5, Second Amendment to Agreement A-8483 with Mariposa Landscape Incorporated for a 1-year extension ending June 30th, 2025, and increase the current not-to-exceed amount from $758,919 to $1,036,880. Again, due to Measure M, there is no actual presentation. Madam Clerk, Madam Assistant Clerk, do we have any public speakers on this item?
Chair Perello, there's no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Do the committee members have any?
Steve, I think if I'm reading this correctly, you mentioned that the city's been divided into 4 sections, for equal sections, so to get equal work, is that correct, services?
Chair Perello and Mayor Zaragoza, Steve Howell, Assistant Public Works Director. Mayor Zaragoza, you are correct. The city, to provide equal levels of service throughout the city, It was divided into 4 sections with 8. One of them has 9 parks within the section. So an equal number of parks for the contractors. So we don't have one contractor spread across the whole city. So that was to provide equal levels of service and the same level of service.
And I like that because in the past, we had concerns that park in certain areas of the city would get more treatment than others and so forth. But I think this is really, really great that our constituent understand that's divided into 4 sections with equal services, which I think is extremely important.
That is correct. And so there's maintenance standards and they are watched by staff. And if one contractor happens to be struggling, in this case, that hasn't happened, but in the event a contractor is struggling, the whole city doesn't suffer. And we only have to rebid one contract. So
Great. I think that, Mr. Chair, is an excellent recommendation.
Just one question. In the region, sounds like an excellent idea, but all of these are going to Mariposa Landscape. Will there be certain crews that are identified as the crew responsible, or will it just be a Mariposa going from park to park? And I appreciated the explanation that you gave.
Chair Perillo, yes, there are 4 different crews in Mariposa. There's actually a lot more than 4, but dedicated to this project, there are 4 separate crews. Now, I'm sure they probably have employees rotating in and out of various crews, but the idea being is it's not one team managing all the city parks. It's 4 different teams working in 4 different areas, and Mariposa, as a contractor, has the flexibility. If they're short-staffed in one area, they can move people, but there are 4 teams. So on any given day, there can be mowing simultaneously throughout the whole city with 4 different crews.
Thank you very much for that clarification. I have no other.
Yeah, Chair Perrella, if you don't mind, I just want to make sure that clarification is that these are existing contracts. So Mariposa is already the existing contractor. These are amendments, and that this is not a new award to this contractor. This is an extension of their existing contract.
Mr. Chair, before we continue, I know it's about 10 minutes till 10, so we need a motion to go past 10 o'clock.
So move the recommended action by Mayor Zaragoza.
Second.
Okay. Do we
Please vote. Thank you for catching.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, are there any public comments on this?
Chair Perrello, there's no public speakers on this item.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Please vote.
Chair Perrello, a heavy motion by Member Zaragoza, a second by Member Valenzuela. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, Public Works Amendment to Agreement 8344 and Amendment to Agreement A-8346 with Garcia Landscaping Maintenance Incorporated and Agreement A-8345 with Mariposa Landscaping Incorporated for landscaping maintenance services with the city's medians and parkways. The recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute and there are 3 parts of this contract, this item. Number 1, Second Amendment to Agreement A-8344 with Garcia Landscape Maintenance Incorporated for a 1-year extension ending June 30th, 2025, and increase the current not-to-exceed amount from $2,415,000 to $3,272,000 in Region 1. Number 2, Third Amendment to Agreement A-8345 with Mariposa Landscaping Incorporated for a 1-year extension ending June 30th, 2025, and increase the current not-to-exceed amount from $2,535,000 to $3,423,000 in Region 2. And third, Second Amendment to Agreement A-8346 with Garcia Landscape Maintenance Incorporated for a 1-year extension ending June 30th, 2025, and increase the current not-to-exceed amount from $2,575,000 to $3,272,000 in Region 3. Again, due to Measure M, there's no presentation. We have staff to answer questions if there's any. Are there any members of the public that want to address any of this?
Chair Perrello, there's no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Any committee questions?
The question I have, Steve, again, is Mariposa is only going to do the mediums and parkways?
Mayor Zaragoza, they have one of the three contracts. So similar to the parks contract, so the parks were broken up into 4 regions, 8 parks in 3 of them, 9 parks in the 4th one. Mariposa was the lowest responsive bidder in the park regions. So for the street landscapes, we divided the city into 3 regions of equal proportions. Again, same principle is that all 3 regions, the north, the central, and the south, receive the same level of service with roughly the same amount of landscape areas. And so when we put it out to bid, in that situation, Garcia's got the lowest responsive bidder for 2 of the contracts, and Mariposa got the lowest responsive bidder for the
So Garcia can
center.
also do mediums and parkways?
Yes, they're doing medians and parkways for the north and the south region, and Mariposa has the central.
Oh, okay, because I initially thought, that Garcia was just going to do some kind of landscaping, then Mariposa, the mediums and the parkways, but they're going to work together.
Correct.
And
So
4 quadrants.
for 3 quadrants for the
3
street
quadrants,
landscapes. So, and it is medians and parkways in each quadrant.
Okay, thank you.
Just a question on the medians. If there's palm trees, comes under the tree contracts? So that's not this,
You are correct.
okay, thank you. I appreciate your explanation.
And that one is under Garcia. So that's under the grid pruning and the on-call tree services, but that is under Garcia's tree services.
Oh,
Thank you.
so Garcia does only trees? I mean, that's the only contractor that does trees, Garcia?
They're not the only contractor that does them, they're the only contractor who the city has right now for both of our on-call and grid pruning.
Oh, gotcha, thank you, okay.
We have some good competitive bid going on with these contracts.
Correct.
Okay.
And Garcia's, the last time these were put out to bid, Garcia's was the lowest responsive bidder, but I don't recall, but I know we had at least perhaps two other contractors put in for the tree. I can't remember the number of vendors we had.
Okay.
Steve, maybe you can remember, we bid a landscaping contract for one of the CFDs, and we got 6 or 7 bids recently, so maybe you can talk about that. And then, if you don't mind, maybe you could talk a little bit about the fact that these 2 contractors are holding their prices from the original bid.
Correct. As Public Works Director Wolf just stated, both Garcia's and Mariposa's are honoring their 2022 rates. Okay. So this is an advantage for the city for us to continue this for 1 more year. They're not raising their prices for this. We expect that when we move forward with the next bid, that prices will go up. But as Director Wolf just stated, we recently closed a bid for the River Park, or not the River Park, I'm sorry, the Seabridge CFD. And we had 5 responsive bidders for that landscape. And I believe that's going to council next, or did we just award that one?
I've forgotten already.
Yeah, I'm losing track of my committee and council.
It's getting late, yeah. Thank you very much.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Does Garcia and Mariposa, do they do also CFD trees and so forth?
They do bid on those as well. The one that was recently awarded for Seabridge, that was actually Brightview, but Garcia's, I believe they have Westport and, yeah, they have Westport.
And Seabridge is a CFD?
Correct.
Okay, right, thank you.
And there's any more public comment?
Chair Perrello, there's no public speakers.
Move the recommended action.
I'll second it. Please vote.
Chair Perrello, I have a motion by Member Valenzuela and a second by Chair Perrello. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on the agenda is the Trade Services Agreement 325-00001. City Attorney? Right. With SCA of California LLC for citywide street sweeping services. Recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with SCA of California Limited Liability Corporation for a not-to-exceed amount of $10,250,000 for a one-year term ending June 30th, 2025, with an option to extend for 4 additional one-year terms for a final expiration date of June 30th, 2029 for citywide street sweeping services, alleyways, parking lots, parking structures, and city facilities. Again, due to Measure M, there is not a presentation, but we do have staff here to answer. Are there any public comments on this item?
Chair Perello, there's no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you. I would just like to make a comment. It struck me when I saw this first one. I remember when I was first married, I lived on Ivywood Drive, and there was a gentleman that used to be a fireman, volunteer fireman for the city of Oxnard. That's a long time ago. And he used to make a point of pride that he would sweep his block. Every trash day, he swept the block. And you never realize how much money he saved the city, but when you look at these things here, you see how much it costs to sweep streets. It's a business. So ladies and gentlemen, we're now dealing with $10.25 million. Okay, any questions?
No,
And it's a needed service.
I think, I just want to share what the chairman said, if all of us swept our curbs, we'd save a lot of money.
Yep.
I do it, in my home, and of course, other people don't, but I live in the cul-de-sac and everybody does it, which is really, really great, However, we have trees that really drop a lot of leaves. Once you sweep and you go in the house and come back and there's more leaves in the curb, But anyway, so the street sweeping does, alley, I didn't realize they did alleys also. We sweep alleys, right?
Yes, Mayor, Chair Perello, committee members, Brian Young is Assistant Public Works Director. We've always done alleys. However, they were done on the 5th week of the month.
Oh, okay.
So with all our alleys that we do have, the 5th week of the month, not every month has 5 weeks, right? So the rotation, we really, I don't know if we even got them all in a year. But what this new contract does is we will do them once a month. We are creating a schedule for that so the public can know, residents can know when their alley would be swept. We also have alleys that are in terrible shape that we may not be able to sweep those. However, we do not get charged if the sweeper is not actually sweeping these individual locations, alleys, parking lots, whatever it may be. So we only get charged when I'll say the brushes are on the ground, right, of the street sweeper. So that's new with this contract because we do get a lot of concerns, complaints about when is my alley going to be swept.
That's right.
And we obviously have new alleys with nice concrete, so hopefully we'll keep those clean.
And are the arterials swept more than the residential streets?
Our arterials are swept
That's weekly?
Twice a month.
Twice a month.
Let me double check that.
Residential on my street, I think, is the first Tuesday and last Tuesday or something like that,
A month on a bi-weekly schedule.
Bi-weekly.
Yeah. Twice per month.
Okay. And then we also
So residential's
Once a month.
twice per month as well.
And also the parking lots.
Parking lots are swept, there's variations of sweeping days. Most of them are gonna be once a month. Our parking structure is done frequently, and some of the downtown parking lots are done more frequently on a frequent basis.
And also, one of the things that you mentioned in your presentation is 21,000 curb miles that we sweep annually. I mean, that's a lot of miles, 21,000.
That's a lot
curb
of miles. That is correct.
And people don't really fully understand that, that. But I can tell you one thing, I've heard from a lot of people that this city looks much cleaner than before, which I think is great. So thank you for that, Mr. Chair.
I'd like to piggyback on what the mayor said. it isn't that often that you get a compliment, but you have to be blind not to see that the city's improved tremendously, tremendously. And when you do get a compliment, it's kind of like surprising. And then they'll tell you, what about this? So it's like you're never satisfied. But the issue with the street sweeping in this and the work that's being done in the alleys, and some alleys, I've just driven down some that are not, I wouldn't send a street sweeper down it. But it will also give us an opportunity to get more eyes on the street and if there's illegal dumping and things like that going on. The question that I have on this particular thing, will there be an increase, and this is probably for the Public Works Director or the city attorney to carry back and they can digest this and bring it back? Will there be an increase in signage in neighborhoods to know when the streets are swept? And with that, I recall very heated discussions from certain residents when their streets are swept and they're posted, that the street sweeper would go around and certain people didn't get a ticket. And then on a different day, they would be complaining about why did I get a ticket? Because I couldn't move the car because there was no place to move the car. Will there be some sort of rationale about how we handle that? Because everything boils down to nuts and bolts, right and wrong. I'm not a saint, but if we can get a ticket policy in place, maybe we can teach people, and we can also possibly get a little income coming in to help pay some of the.
Chair Perrello, we do have some areas of our community that do not have street sweeping signs.
My neighborhood's one of them, and I'm not complaining about my neighborhood.
So, I mean, River Park's another one. I don't have the list in front of me, but we are evaluating those with this contract. We've been doing it for the last year and a half at least to see where our street sweepers unable to reach the curb, right? Accessing the curb is a priority for the street sweeper. That's where the debris lies. So some of the areas just don't qualify just because someone wants a sign there, and it takes enforcement. It takes some data that we're collecting to if that street sweeper is able to access the curb. So we just don't want to go out and randomly start putting up signs in neighborhoods that are not street sweeping, have street sweeping signs. So we're evaluating that to see how often we're able to get to that curb and if we're having any issues. So we're evaluating those kind of issues that we have out there. But for the most part, we do have areas that are signed and some areas that are not signed. Some of these areas that are not signed, we don't have issues accessing the curb. Some areas that do not have signs, we're evaluating, can we get there? And some of these may need signs in the future, and we'll have to look at that and come back.
Do we know if the areas that do have signs, are there actually tickets issued?
If there are no signs, tickets should not be issued. There's no enforcement.
But if there is a sign, are tickets issued?
Yes, the traffic safety officers, I think they're called, coordinate with our street sweeping days and actually coordinate with the street sweeping company. So they kind of start at the same time. So they're in the lead of the street sweeper. So those are coordinated effort with Oxnard PD, the traffic safety.
Mr. Chair, I can tell you that on sweeping day from Holly all the way to Gonzales Ventura Road, they give tickets. And sweeping day, you can see all the cars moved except for one or two, and they're out there citing those cars.
Yes.
So.
Because I know someone in the South Winds neighborhood, and sometimes they've complained that there's no place to put the car and move it around. And so it has led, I believe, to finding some cars that were non-operable just parked on the street. So I appreciate this and I support this. So it's part of the city, as the mayor has pointed out, this has got to look good. The guts got to be good, but you got to look good too. You don't have to look like $1 million, but you got to look good, and clean streets is a big part of it. Any public comments at all?
Chair Perrello, there's no public speakers.
If not, I'll support this, and I know it's a lot of money, but it's part of taking care of business and part of being a big city. I'd move the recommended action.
Second.
Please vote.
Chair Perrello, I have a motion by Chair Perrello, a second by Member Valenzuela. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. Do committee members have any ideas for a future agenda item?
I don't. No.
None? Okay, neither do I. With that, I want to thank the staff for staying here. Thank you very much. Thank you for the work
Thank
you guys
you.
are doing. This meeting is adjourned.